This is the story of a girl from a very small town in northern Wisconsin traveling abroad across the Atlantic for the first time on a trip that she had been planning for over 2 years to see the world, something she's so incredibly passionate about, and for it to all go to hell. This is the story of my, quite frankly, awful first week in Edinburgh, Scotland. And yes, my trip has been pretty great since this, and the rest of the trip I suspect is going to be quite amazing, but hopefully. I really hope so. But this is the storytime video of my awful first week in Scotland. Okay, let's get into this. First up, I'm gonna preface that I have notes and like a small journal I've been keeping track, so that's why I'm gonna be looking a lot this way throughout the video. I'm probably gonna be reading a lot of what I wrote. So yeah, that's what we're working with here. August 20th, 2022. Lexi showed up in my house this day. I was very excited to see her. I hadn't seen her in about a month at that point, and I was super excited for her to get there. Oh my god! Hello, Bessie! We went to bed relatively early. We didn't do too much that night. We just talked and planned about the days to come, and we were excited, we were happy, and this was the last night of peace. For me, anyways. August 21st. I awoke at 3 a.m. anxiety attack. Now, I have anxiety. I have pretty clinical bad anxiety, but I'm not treated because I don't like the idea of pills. However, it did not help. Severe panic was ridden the whole day. This was, of course, due to the fact leaving my cat. I was very sad about. I have never been on a plane. This is an important detail that we will come back to later. And then of course just being abroad for 4 months, which I don't have a problem leaving home. Like, homesickness doesn't really affect me, but leaving my poor cat, who I love very dearly, that was getting to me. And then the plane anxiety was getting to me more than I thought. Didn't think I had a fear of flying, and turns out I don't. But once again, we'll get back to this later. We left by 8. Lexi calmly and beautifully drove us to Shakopee, where we met up with the rest of our friends, the Bone Gals, Adrian, Logan, and Jaden, who I seen later that day, and we went to Ren Fair, and I go for Ren Fair. I promise it is gonna come out. It's probably just gonna be super delayed, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, but I have it, and some really interesting things actually happened at Ren Fair. Mostly for that night, my anxiety had tamed down to probably about a 3. It was pretty fine the rest of the night. We ate at Jaden's and hung out with the boys a little bit longer before heading to Lexi's. And this was my first time actually going to Lexi's house because she lives far away and I have a driving phobia as well. Hot mess, I know. Anyways, we went to Lexi's and back into her house, unpacked super quick, and then went to bed pretty quick that night. So the rest of that night was pretty fine. August 22nd. I felt a bit better this day. This was the one day I had in Mankato before our flight the next day, and I think my body knew that. I was like, okay, I'm safe for this day. So my anxiety calmed, and that day, pretty much a breeze. Lexi showed me around her small hometown and Mankato. We went for a drive, we went for a walk, we went for a very, very short hike, like less than 20 minutes, to see a waterfall. We briefly went to a pet store and I got to geek out at a bunch of birds. I really love birds. Random fun fact about me. My anxiety was probably like an average 2 to 4 throughout that day, so it was alright. By the way, this video is not about anxiety. You may think it is, just partially. I sat around while Lexi packed a lot and we chatted, and it was a pretty great time. But by that night, I had a feeling that the anxiety would start creeping back. August 23rd. This was the day of our flight. Our flight from MSP Airport in Minneapolis to the Netherlands Airport to Scotland, Edinburgh. Yeah. Finally, around 2 p.m. we headed out from her house towards the airport with her dad, who skillfully navigated not only the roads but the airports like a pro. Thank you to Troy, like, for real. He's a real one. Stressfully, we arrived and made our way through the MSP airport, which was very confusing for us, but he led us through. Great. Once in, we walked seemingly forever to almost the very end, and we found our gate. And this is when the waiting began, which if you've been to an airport, this is no big deal. We just sat forever and waited. Eventually, about 2 hours after we had already been waiting, our other friend Colin arrived and waited for us for the final bit. By 7:30, we were finally boarding our plane, and we watched takeoff, and to a pleasant surprise to me, it didn't bother me. This is so interesting. As a note, my ears were all right. We went up. I watched everything, probably about a 3 on the anxiety scale, okay? Just like a 3. It was down here, it was not up here. So I was like shocked. My body regulated, and I was like, this is fine. We got some food. We had chicken and I had chicken and potatoes. I think Lexi had some sort of pasta dish, and then Colin didn't sit by us, which was weird. But it was all right. And I watched The Great Gatsby with Lexi, and then she tried to sleep. I tried to sleep. I knew it wouldn't work for me. I can't sleep in moving vehicles. So then I kind of just sat there for 2-3 hours, and then later on I very tiredly watched Ratatouille. MSP time at like 3 a.m. I turned on Ratatouille and I was like, guess this is it. But this is about where things started to take a turn for the worst. August 24th. The night of our flight had passed, the morning had arisen, we were over the skies of Europe and nearing the Netherlands, and the plane announced descent. I was always scared of takeoff. Having never been on a plane before, I didn't know about descent. No one talked about this, so this is me telling you about descent. You see, I, about 2 weeks prior to this, had a mild, what I thought was mild, lymph node infection in my neck, which resulted in like 2 days, maybe max, of an ear infection in my ear. This was about 2.5 weeks before our flight, and I have never really had an ear infection in my entire life, so the fact that this arose at the same time, stress related, mayhaps, probably, honestly. But yeah, I had that, and it was like entirely gone, no pain in either avenues, for like a solid 4 days at the least, leading up to the day we left. Including the whole time I had anxiety for like the 3 days prior, didn't have this and this. Like that was gone by that point, so I was like, it's fine, whatever. And once again, ascent on the plane wasn't an issue for me. Descent. I had barometer problems. There's a long word for it. I'll put it up here in my ear, airplane ear, also known as, where specifically for me, it felt like if you took about 5 needles, like sewing needles, in both hands, and you went right here on the like hinge of your jaw and your eardrum. You just took those needles, kind of like splayed them out, and you just started pressing them into the sides of my skull. This lasted for the entire hour-long descent, and during this, ascent didn't do it. Descent, extreme. From everyone I've talked to, no one else has had even close to this. Extreme ear clogging. My right ear was okay, but the left ear, where I had had the mild ear infection weeks prior, became so plugged that I described it countless times as this ear had about 50% hearing, this ear had about 10, if I was lucky, for the next day or so. If I'm lucky. It was horrifically bad. So yeah, my eardrums started burning and stinging. I ended up sobbing through the entire descent and all the way down to touchdown, and was rendered basically completely deaf in that airport. And Lexi had never been to this airport. The Netherlands airport, if you don't know, is massive, and we had no clue where our gate was. It took ages to find, and we had to walk forever with all of our stuff, and we had very heavy bags because we're here for 4 months, obviously. So I felt really bad for Lexi, and then Colin was not helping, so Lexi was kind of on her own. It made me feel very extremely helpless and bad in that scenario. And we finally got there, and then I had an anxiety attack. Because I was like, I have to do this again. But our next flight was only like an hour, so I was like, maybe it'll be fine. It wasn't. I barely remember anything. We slowly made it through the security again, and went up, sobbed, 40 minutes of like, okay. In fact, my ears popped very briefly in the air. Descent happened, and this time, somehow, even worse, I was near 100% deaf in my right ear, or my left ear, sorry. Probably like 2% hearing, and then this ear at that point was probably 20 to 30%. It was bad. The moral of the story now is to not fly with an ear infection, although there is more to come. Then we got a cab, and we made it to the Abbey where we are staying. which is lovely, by the way. It's so great. And upon arriving, we met Kelsey, our director from our school, who was here for only a couple of days, and then we met Kathy, who's our director here in Scotland, who is an absolute gem. I was crying through our whole first meeting, which I'm sure they did not like to see from one of their first students arriving. They tried to show me around. I remember none of that day at all. I finally got back to the room, and keep in mind, on top of all of this, and me crying for at bare minimum 6 hours. Bare minimum. I got back to the room and just sobbed more and then went to bed. I have no clue what time it was at that point. It was probably like 6 p.m. Scottish time. I hadn't slept in like 2 days as well on top of everything, which was real nice. August 25th. To my relative disgust awakening on the 25th, I found my ears no better at all. I was incredibly nauseous as well. This is the important fun note. Lexi had went into town and gotten her phone figured out without me the day before when I conked out into unconsciousness from my relative peril. Against my better judgment, I somehow talked myself into very last minute to Edinburgh that day, which is about a 40-minute bus ride away, with some other girls who said they were gonna go get SIM cards. We never did end up getting SIM cards that day, which no fault of their own, but that was the only reason I told myself I was going to go, and that was a horrible decision because I was incredibly nauseous and dizzy all day. And if you don't know anything about Scotland, the best way I can describe Edinburgh, which is the capital, is it is like made out of stairs. There are so many stairs everywhere. Even when you're like not in Edinburgh, there's just kind of stairs everywhere. The buildings in Scotland also so many stairs. Like slowing us down. There was like 8 of us this day. We had to stop constantly for me, and I just felt so bad for everyone. It made me already have like body issues and like pain, and I can't walk for a long distance. Like Lexi knows this about me and she puts up with it, and I love her. But I really felt bad because these were like a bunch of California girls who were just out here to have a good time, and I was just like, hey, we met 5 minutes ago. I need to take breaks every 10 minutes because I feel like I'm gonna die. We met another friend that we had made a little bit previously to the trip, named Maddie, who was super nice and sweet, and she was very helpful through this day. Another fun thing about our first week in Scotland, to add on to the pile of trash, was in fact the piles of trash. We went during the end of Fringe Festival, so bin strikes were happening right now, so there was trash absolutely everywhere in the streets. I'm for the reason of bin striking, so that's not a big issue. However, our first impression of the city was definitely mountains of trash literally everywhere. I don't think I took any pictures of it. In retrospect, I should have. There's a bunch of pictures online and articles if you look up the Edinburgh bin strikes. But yeah, it was quite nasty also in town our first couple days. By the end of that day, I managed to half alively make my way back to the Abbey with everyone. Also, this was the first time we had ever used buses or trams or whatever you want to call them here, and those made me even more nauseous, which was a night. Keep in mind, after this whole day of jet-lagged, complete crazy anxiety, nauseousness, I was also still about 80% deaf. Now for August 26th, this is the real, like, the cherry on top of my horrible first week in Edinburgh. I don't like this word, but this was a doozy of a day. I woke up and was struck with intense dizziness, and by the time I made it to the breakfast hall, I felt like I was truly going to pass out. Causing concern to others, Kelsey, assigned me to Bob, who is Kathy's lovely husband, to take me to the doctor. Obviously, healthcare in the UK, very different to the States. Better in the long run, for sure. National healthcare, something I think every country should strive for, in some degree at least. However, waiting times, absolutely absurd. It was bad, especially because it was during Fringe Fest. Oof. I stayed with him for the rest of the day, while everyone else in our entire program got to go to the Edinburgh Tattoo, which I had to miss. And if you don't know what that is, I won't go through explaining all of it, but if you do know what it is, the tattoo and the festival, I had free tickets and I missed all of it for this day. You'll hear about this day. I stayed with Bob for the rest of the day. We went to the doctor. We sat for 3 hours. The only doctor I seen did 3 things. Stabbed me and took my blood pressure, which I am terrified of needles, like deathly, like pass out afraid of needles. Gave me a very incredibly violent COVID test, the worst one I've had since. I was negative, by the way, just an FYI. We were good there. And then took my blood pressure. Because of this, though, they sent me back to the waiting room because I wasn't a concerning patient, and We sat for 2 more hours. I met a very lovely lady in the waiting room. She was very nice. She bought me tea. We talked. We chatted. She was great. Hope she's doing okay because she was there with very bad gut problems. But after 2 hours, I was incredibly tired because keep in mind the jet lag and the pain, and I was deaf and I was incredibly dizzy. I felt like I was gonna pass out for this entire like 8-hour session. I finally told Bob like I would rather be back at home or the Abbey taking a nap and hoping the dizziness passes than sitting in this lobby with 50 people coughing and with head injuries. Literally, don't know why, at least 4 people in their head, like semi-severe head injuries, and they were just sitting because they were very overbooked and couldn't take anyone. So finally we went up to the desk after waiting for 5 hours and said, hey, do you know how long it's gonna be? And I was sobbing this whole time, and they were like, I'm so sorry to tell you, but like there's still 9 people in front of you. So I, still crying, was like, Bob, we gotta dip. So we left after waiting for 5 hours, which is like a faux pas, I assume, but we did. We zoomed. And we went to the pharmacy. We took a cab to the pharmacy because the trams and the buses and like everything was still making me nauseous. So we get in the cab, guys, we get in the cab and we get to Boots, which is the pharmacy in Scotland, and we get out of the cab and I immediately am like, shit, my phone. I left my phone in the seat, but he had closed the door. And the cab drove off. And there's this thing in Europe, this is another pro tip to anyone traveling, there's a thing in Europe called a finder's fee. We didn't know the cab number, so they had to find the cab to bring my phone back. It cost me about $35 to return my phone when I literally knew that I left it behind the closed door. So I had to pay $35 to get my phone back. And we went up to Boots, the pharmacy, after waiting for 5 hours at a doctor, and the pharmacy was closed. So we walked, Bob was like, it's fine, no, there's no big deal. So we walked another mile. I was dizzy this whole time. I just got my phone back after waiting in the sun for my phone to return. We walked a mile to the other pharmacy. I don't remember what this pharmacy is called. And they were also closed, but this one opened again in 30 minutes. So we sat on the ground and waited for 30 minutes. Finally got in, talked to a pharmacist after waiting another 20 minutes. I got eardrops and sinus spray. By the way, 2 days prior when I was in Edinburgh, I also bought medicine there. So in my room right now, I have about 6 different medicines. Like, actually, one sec, let me show you here. This is my pile of medicine. This is not all of it. There is more in my purse. And there is a bottle of eardrops in this very tiny bathroom, which is this wall right here. I was dying, guys. It was bad. So yeah, while all this is happening, I finally get back and the bus was leaving for the tattoo and I was like, no, I'm not going. So I used the eardrops, I laid in bed, I was sad, I was very depressed, and I went to bed for the night. I'm definitely missing other things that happened that day. Oh, in total, I had to pay like $48 out of pocket for that day, which I didn't want to spend any money that day. That was also fun. Oh, and also, this is the end of my 3rd day. Still didn't have a phone. Also, yeah, here's my proof for this story. My wristband from the Royal Scottish Infirmary, which is a fun name, by the way, at the Scots. You got fun names here. Also, speaking of Scotland, your roads suck. Like, I thought they were gonna be cool and like trendy and like cool to look at and take pictures of. No, I hate them. They're bad. Get better roads. Like, if you're a nauseous person, bring motion sickness pills. Buy motion sickness pills before you go to Ireland or Scotland. Probably England, I don't know. Probably Wales. I'm just, do it. Okay, go up though. Hey everyone, we're exploring New Battle Abbey right now on our own. Hunter, Lexi, and Nabby down there. We got locked in a castle.
Okay, and then what room are you in? Are you in a classroom?
She is trying to navigate someone we met a couple hours ago to come get us, but we went through like 5 rooms to get here, and it's amazing here.
Door in one of the rooms, there's like a couple doors in a room, and one of them's locked and one of them isn't.
Then shut it and try and leave them locked.
No, don't try if it's locked.
Oh no. Oh, we hear you.
Oh wait, I think I can hear you. Oh, you're in that room.
Uh-oh. Was that the door? Ask her if she can get out.
Are you in this room? You gotta do like the weird, yeah.
Wait, did you get locked in this room?
No, I
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's literally like a friggin' maze just to get to the classrooms. Speaking of maze. And on top of all of the nonsense of the day prior, I also had missed a 4-hour tour and orientation for our entire program. So, August 27th, I awoke and went to my first orientation because I had missed the prior one. I seen one of the rooms where our classroom was going to be held. I still felt pretty off this day, but my ear had opened ever so slightly. I was probably rocking a good 30% hearing in this ear. In this ear. This ear was better. My right ear was almost open, kind of, this day. I probably was at a good 80% in that ear. I still felt off most of that day, though. Didn't want to pursue much, but I made myself anyways, and oh boy, this gave so long. Afternoon, we split up and we put into random groups, so not even people I was friends with. I did make friends with these people, so this is not a big problem, but at the time, strangers, you know, strangers. Split up into groups, and I met Tess, Hannah, and Michaela, all lovely individuals who are all sweethearts, and I enjoyed spending the day with them thoroughly. However, it was a scavenger hunt. We had to go into Edinburgh and find locations and take pictures. I will toss the pictures up on the screen. We did great. We actually ended up winning later, but I think we only won because like no one followed the rules, which is after the hunt we broke away from Hannah, and the other 3 of us went to an H&M briefly, and then we went back on the bus. I sat with Tessa. It was nice, but by the time we got back to the Abbey, me and Michaela were like starving, so we talked to Bob and Kathy, and we tried to figure out some food, and here's where my bad luck comes back once again. We walked 2 miles in a direction we had not been before. This is just me and Michaela, who I had met this day. We walked 2 miles uphill, up a Scottish hill. We seen sheep. We seen a big ass field of sheep into this town we didn't even know about, because we heard from Bob that there was a nice Chinese restaurant. By the way, 2 hours prior to this, we went to a restaurant that Bob also had recommended, and they only took reservations, so we could get in. We walked 2 miles up a hill, got to this next town, we went into this nice Chinese restaurant that Bob had also recommended. Guess what? They only took reservations. So we walk another half mile. We get to a pub, we open the door, look inside, there's about 50 adult men in football jerseys, which if you know culture in Scotland, England, is fucking terrifying. And we just closed the door and we're like, no, we can't do that. We can't do that. So we walk another quarter mile. This is after already walking 10,000 or more steps in Edinburgh that day. And we walk another quarter mile to a bus stop and we sit and we're like, what do we do? So we're like, okay, we will go to the Lidl or we will go to the Morrisons in Dalkeith. It's fine. We get on the bus. Somehow, I don't know how, we ended up at a Tesco. Like the bus just went to a Tesco and we're like, okay. So we got off the Tesco, we got some food. We didn't eat the food, we just bought some food because we were like, okay, we ended up here. And then they had a McDonald's next door and we're like, we're in Scotland, baby, we're gonna go eat cool food. No, we went to a McDonald's and we got McDonald's. And Michaela, such a nice person. We chatted and laughed a lot about getting lost and somehow ending up at a Tesco, and we both had anxiety, and she was like, okay, I want to take the bus, you want to take a cab, you're calling the cab if we do that. So I was like, whatever, I'll do it, I'll work up the courage, I'll call the cab. So I call the cab and they're all booked and we're like, we don't know how to get home, we don't have internet, her phone's dead, I don't have a phone still. So we got back on the bus. We did get back, it's fine, mostly. However, I had not been through this weird woods way yet. She had, which was fine, but I was dead at this point, and we walked through the woods 2 miles. I've done it a couple times now, and it's like a normal path, but it's a sketchy ass woods, especially for the first time, and it was getting dark. And this is like true Scottish woods. I can't describe it. You just have to believe me, it's weird. My average steps during like January break period was 1,000 a day, if we're lucky. I walked 14 miles that day. August 28th. We're getting on the up and up here, slightly. I went for a short walk this day with Lexi. We finally got my phone figured out after a long ass time. I got McDonald's again this day. We wandered around Dalkeith a little bit. It was pretty alright. However, my phone, like my SIM card wouldn't open and that was like real stressful, but Bob figured it out. It was great. It was fine after a while. It was shaky in the moment though. Here again, the eardrops were probably working. Maybe, I don't know. The eardrops felt like it was getting worse the more I used them, so I stopped after my 5th day, and I was also taking Sudafed the whole time and nasal spray. So this was the first day it felt like it was possibly getting better. The dizziness also left the end of this day, so I had the dizziness which was probably anxiety related mostly, however it also is like directly an equilibrium problem, so it was probably both. It very specifically sounded like a PVC pipe every time I chewed or made any noise with my jaw, and it was awful. That night, I watched part of a movie, was mostly on my phone the whole time, because I didn't enjoy the movie the girls were watching, but I wanted to be included and they were all nice, so I was like, I'll sit here and chat. And engage, kind of, and had some fun snacks. That was good. And then after that, Lexi and I went to walk back to our dorm from the tower, which is what we call our lounge. And Lexi ended up leaving, but I stopped and talked with 3 other members of our little group here, Jaslyn, Michael, and Colin, of course, y'all know Colin. Jaslyn is so sweet and nice. We had a lot of comments, so I've been hanging out with her a lot. And then Michael, and we all stopped and we ended up talking about some of the graveyards here. The abbey we are in is supposedly haunted, and if you know me, I adore ghosts. And on an unrelated note, I have seen, I think 2 ghosts since we've got here, which is very interesting because I've grown up in a haunted house and I've fucking loved it. But I haven't like seen anything with my eyes since I was like younger, like 10 or below. And I seen something here, like visually, when I wasn't even like looking for ghosts. I was literally looking for a classroom, like genuinely didn't know because I missed the tour I mentioned before. So Lexi was showing me to our classroom and I was like, oh, I just seen a human height black figure that looked like it had a larger bottom, like a person in a black dress, walk from the air and disappear into a hallway. So that was actually fun. I was very thrilled by that. Lexi not so much, but I've been telling people that, which is fun. After that, a lot of up and up stories, and I'm gonna share a lot of stories later on. So that has been my awful first week in Edinburgh, Scotland. I missed the tattoo, I missed Fringe Fest. I was deaf in my left ear for about 6 to 7 days. I was insanely dizzy for 4 days. I almost passed out in the street multiple times. There was a bin strike. I lost my phone. But the upsides, the very few. I found out I'm not scared of planes. My ears just hate them. Also, didn't really have jet lag, like at all, because I was so emotionally overwhelmed with other things. The jet lag just didn't happen, so that was nice. I tried a lot of Scottish food, a lot of Scottish candy, and here's a little surprise for the rest of you. I bought about $50 worth of Scottish candy and food and chips and snacks, and I'm here, but Scottish food review. I might do a British food review also later when we go to London eventually. Speaking of all of that, I will update eventually also about if my ear does this again on another plane, because if it does, I'm gonna lose it. I can do this again, guys. It was bad. It was really fucking bad. But I'm gonna go in at least 1 more flight. Hopefully like 6 more, but we're gonna try at least 1 more while we're here before we leave, and hopefully it's alright. Also, this is another fun thing. There's this super great YouTuber who is Scottish and makes designs, and I'll throw her name up here because I don't know how to pronounce it and I feel bad. But I traveled for I walked like 3 miles today to get this, and I also got this cute little Highlander cow pin, which I'll show you right here. He's so sweet. And you can find her pins at a little shop on George Street in Edinburgh, and I walked forever just because I wanted to get them. And yeah, they're super cute and weird, interesting story time. It's probably gonna be super long, but I hope you stuck around and enjoyed it because it really was a lot. And that's definitely not all. Like, I've been taking like notes every day and I have like a journal going, so I'll have more story times. I'm gonna try to upload this with very minimal edits because it's gonna be a lot of footage to look through and it's mostly a story, so I'm just gonna go into the void and anyone who wants to watch it can. But please, like, comment, and subscribe. Anyway. Glad I got that off my chest. Oh, one more bad thing. Half of the group was exposed to COVID, and at least 4 people of our 20 people group have COVID right now. No winning. Anyways, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed my misery. Comment down below all the bad things that have happened to you in the last week, or all the good things. Tell me the good things. I want to know what's happening with everyone. Thanks for watching, and like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.
They're going to be visiting people they know over here and abroad to the continent. So we're going to carve out some time to kind of